Essentially happening in the urban areas of the less developed nations of the world. That is where real growth is concerned. Everything else on the planet is pretty much a pittance compared to that. Now, what does that mean for us? It means a lot, especially when you read a statement like this. The urban population in China is to reach 1.21 billion by 2050. It's a shift of more than 600 million people from the countryside to urban centers. That's 600. That's the largest movement of humanity ever. Now, it's difficult to imagine what that might be, actually, unless you go and you see China, or you make the effort to see what it means to be in a growing, fast-growing city, fast-growing area. Ed asked me to show a few projects out of our stable, from Arup's stable. We've got almost 8,000 people around the world, 70-something offices, 30-something countries, and picking just a few projects to share with you that relate to climate change, sustainable design, and where we might think things are going was not an easy task. But I thought of this as one of the most important ones. Because unsustainable urbanization is a threat to all of our long-term security. Not just here. We don't have to go and grab oil and gas from people. It's for everybody. It's really important that we realize this, and the Chinese realize this. And the governments at 3 different levels came to us as well as a developer and asked us, okay, we need to understand how to make sustainable cities. We know that. We cannot continue to grow as we like to. Because we would like to use our energy, and they didn't say this is my interpretation now, we would like to use our energy to create goods, to sell, to get capital. We don't want to waste our energy in burning or cooling when we don't need to. Let's use that highly coveted resource, that wonderful gas and oil, where it needs to be used, not to waste it. And this was something which Dr. Hansen's pointing out. We will use it, but let's use it in the right stuff. So this is Dongtang. It's an island near Shanghai, and Shanghai is growing at a phenomenal rate, as everyone knows in China. Thanks to Google, we can now see it. Google Earth. What did we all do before Google Earth? It's hard to imagine what we did, isn't it? Every time I go away now, I can put a little pin mark in the map so my kids know where I am. It's like, where's Dad? Well, let's go look in Google Earth. Here we go. But there it is. There's the island. It's fantastic. There's an 8,500 hectare site. It's an accretion island in the middle of the Yangtze River, and there's gives you the size of it. There's Manhattan on the left, and there's the London Circular on the right. So it's not a small piece of real estate. We worked with the local communities, with the local developer, understanding that, as was pointed out already, you need to have an integrated approach. You need to have all the constituents around the table. We developed about 7 years ago something called the SPEAR diagram, which is a Sustainable Project Evaluation Routine, trying to begin to mix qualitative and quantitative material into one representational diagram. We use that to try to help achieve an understanding about the implications. If you want to do this, what implies on this? You do this, so it's all intertwined, it's interlaced. After that, we created then, again, with our partners there in Shanghai, the idea of a short-term and long-term vision for the island, for this community. And I'm going to share with you a few of the objectives. And if you go Google it, you can find an awful lot more, okay? Just wanted to bring some of the headlines. One of the objectives was to reduce the particulates, right? To protect the environment. There's a bird habitat on the wetland park, which you see over to the right-hand side, trying to ensure that that wetland park, which is on the migratory path, will remain intact. Trying to reduce light pollution, to actually truly look at the design and the zoning of the entire project so that those 250,000 people won't be impacting the land in other ways. third objective was a low eco footprint, trying to have a factor 10 reduction in the energy footprint. Most cities there would have a 5 gigahectare eco footprint. We got it down to 2.6, and it's not good enough. 2.6 gigahectares per head is not enough. We need to get it down to 2.2. This brings me to a subtext point here is we don't know how to live in cities yet. And this is on one hand fantastic because it gives us some research challenges for our students and our researchers around the world to work with city governments to try to optimize, to try to understand how to live on the planet for the long term. On the other hand, it's terribly frightening, and I think that we put some of our best minds to it and couldn't get it below 2.6. Another objective is agricultural production, where we actually take the sunlight, filter it, moderate it so that we're aiming it right at the different types of plants so we get the right growth cycles. Have food factories between 2 to 5 floors of rice production. Instead of the traditional way in the city, you're actually producing your food in the city, in a food factory, if you will. Again, on one hand, I don't like that. Personally, I have a hard time with it, but we have to recognize that over the next 100 years, there are lots of things we're going to have to get used to. And this is going to be one of them. Sixth objective was our energy production, which I think was really phenomenal. We have to get it down to a zero carbon, and we were able to do that. For all of our electricity production, we got it down to zero, no carbon emissions at all. We had quite a broad range of the way in which we were using the energy production from large-scale wind farms, small-scale within the city, photovoltaics, combined heat and power, cultivated biomass, actually using the cuttings, as well as using the rice residue, although it's slightly problematic because it has a lot of silica in it, but I think we figured that one out. But the towns were supposed to be in harmony with nature as a community, which is 3 different, if you will, villages within a town. It's starting construction next week, in March. It is a very interesting plan for the transportation. If you're on a bicycle,